Welcome to our session on collective memory and forgetting as social constructs. Memory and forgetting as two sides of the same coin, if you like, an analytical concept, are truly fundamental to understand how do we construct our own collective identities. We can say that we know whom we are just because we know whom we were. This is truly fundamental assumption which constitutes like a major point of reference for very understanding of the meaning of memory and forgetting as framing, determining factors responsible for our own construction of both individual and collective identity. Once again, we know who we are because we remember or forget whom we were. This is truly fundamental. That sounds like emphasizing again interactive symbolic interpretation of the impact of the past on the way we construct our understanding of individual and collective identity. We know whom we are because we remember or forget selectively whom we were. This is also very much, you see, relevant for our study on cultural heritage transmission. The way cultural heritage is being transmitted also in the city space is very much like an outcome of what do we remember, whom do we remember, and what do we forget. Why do we remember and why do we forget? There is no memory without forgetting, and there is no forgetting without memory. And in this sense, this is truly fundamental again to understand the dynamics of individual and collective identity construction. As explained convincingly by one of the researchers in the field, in this case Barbara Szacka, and I quote, answering the question who are we is preconditioned by the character of an attitude towards our own past, whom we were. End of quote. As we can see, the way we remember or forget our own past determines like self-awareness of whom we understand we are in the present. No, there is no memory without forgetting. Forgetting is also remembering in a certain way, and this is going to be explained a bit later on in fundamental typology of remembering and forgetting in social science. We associate with a famous work by Jan Assmann and his typology of generational and cultural memory. This typology is truly fundamental to understand different forms of identity construction, again as determined by a different approach to the way we remember and the way we forget the past. So, according to Jan Assmann, we can actually identify two forms of memory. One is so-called generational memory. What is generational memory according to Jan Assmann? It is a result of personal messaging and a kind of subjective experience being transmitted passed to next generations. And you see, yes, and clearly evident. This is very much relevant to our major overarching problem, research problem of our project, the way we transmit cultural heritage in city landscapes. One way is, as Assmann would put it, is to do it through generational memory. So transmission of cultural heritage through generational memory, according to Assmann, would be about like messaging, transmitting personal stories, yes, subjective experience to next generations. This is the essence of generational memory. In this sense, city landscape being the outcome of generational memory, yes, would be heavily shaped by the way we understand, yes, and then construct our understanding of these personal stories. And we can find, yes, many examples in the city landscape of personal stories. Of course, no better example than the very idea of museums. Museums are, yes, very much like built on this very much generational memory paradigm. In museums we can find, yes, different forms of personal storytelling. But in this sense, once again, the essence of generational memory, according to Assmann, would be that individual stories are being simply communicated, transmitted, and they are being like projected to subsequent generations. They are in this sense like axiomatic, ready-made stories which are not negotiable, which cannot be challenged. On the other hand, we have cultural memory. This is the second type of remembering, according to Assmann. Cultural memory, according to Assmann, is a result, is an outcome of memory institutionalization. This memory institutionalization takes a form of ritual or symbolization. Consequently, we can assume after Assmann that a cultural memory is more endurable, resistant, or we can say is more fixed as compared to generational memory, as it constitutes the foundation of collective memory, which are then transmitted into myths connected to national identity formation. So, just to give you the flavor, yes, of what is the major difference between a generational memory and cultural memory, and how these two actually forms of understanding collective memory then are present in social interactions. So, following Jelena Jerochina, we can understood interpret Assmann's concept of generational memory in terms of biographical memories connected to direct experience, which comes out of the natural communication processes. In this sense, the generational memory is again like natural process of transmission of personal experience to subsequent generations, based, yes, on biographical memories. But here is the limitation of generational memory. Generational memory is very much, of course, conditioned by the very existence of those who are the source of these memories. Generations come and go naturally. So this, the endurance of generational memory, of course, heavily relies, yes, on actually the very fact that we have the carriers of such memory simply among us. This form of memory is accessible provided, yes, we have an access to those who remember. So, just to give you the idea, if we commemorate national uprisings, if we commemorate in public space all those important events that happen in national history, yes, one way of remembering is actually as inviting those to speak in public space, those who personally survived, yes, who lived that time and remember that time, and they just transmit the memory of the time. So remembering, for instance, Warsaw Uprising as seen through the generational memory lens would be like inviting those who survived, those who took active part in Warsaw Uprising, and then they simply share their memory, their experience of that specific time, and they are being identified as living history carriers. But again, this form of generational memory lives as long as those who carry such memory simply live as long as they are among us. The other type of memory is also is as indicated, as introduced by Assmann, is cultural memory. And as we have emphasized, major difference between cultural and generational memory is that the latter one is very much based on the process of ritualization and symbolization, simply saying institutionalization of memory. So again, let me refer to Jelena Jerochina and her understanding of Assmann's concept of cultural memory. Cultural memory, according to Assmann, would require an official tradition, handbooks, monuments. In this sense, it is based on constitutive systems of signs, myths, rituals, habits, ceremonies. It is petrified in institutional forms, public holidays, anniversaries, anthems, national symbolism. So once again, this is the major difference between generational memory and cultural memory, which needs to be taken into account when actually trying to understand the way cultural heritage is being constructed and reconstructed in city landscape. Simply saying cultural heritage could be a product, an outcome of two different forms of memory. Again, generational memory and cultural memory, with the conclusion that the cultural memory is much more endurable, as it is very much about the institutionalization of symbols, rituals, and it is actually very much like major point of reference when we study, yes, when we research transformation of a symbolic landscape in the city space. Thank you.